Well, it would seem as if I have to do predictions for the Lakers and Nuggets now, and I didn't see that one coming. But before I get to that, we gotta hop into the barbershop and talk about the Clippers because this is some sad shit. The Los Angeles Clippers took one of the most massive L's I have seen in modern NBA history. This is almost as disappointing as in 2016 with the Warriors. And in some ways, it's more disappointing because there were no injuries, there were no suspensions, it was just them. The Clippers were exactly 13 game minutes away from getting to their first Western Conference Finals, which would have ignited the Battle of LA with the Lakers. They were up by nearly 20 points. They were up 3-1. That game and that series were both over. We were making our predictions for the Lakers and Clippers, the series everybody wanted to see. The entire season in the Western Conference has been about how the Lakers and Clippers have never both had these type of title expectations at the same time. They've never met in the playoffs. It was supposed to be Kawhi versus LeBron, hell, Paul George versus LeBron. This was the Clippers' one chance to establish some type of respect within a franchise that has always been not just little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers, but the totally irrelevant franchise in that city. I mean, how much more of a juxtaposition between franchises could you even have? One with the second most titles in NBA history and one that rarely ever makes the playoffs. So obviously, beating the Lakers this year or even winning a title, it wasn't going to fix everything. It wasn't going to fix the years of history here, but it would have made them somewhat legitimate. And I'll tell you what, I could have dealt with the Clippers losing. I could have dealt with them losing to the Lakers. Hell, I could have even dealt with them just losing to the Nuggets. But losing in a way where they blow 3 double-digit leads, was it? In 3 consecutive closeout games? And having the 2 star players of that team just totally disappear down the stretch and not even look as if they wanted to take over? It makes the squad look like frauds. Aside from Kawhi Leonard, you heard a lot of chirping from this roster, and now they're just a meme. But it gets worse than that. There could be one version of this where people say, okay, it was their first year together, we're overreacting, it's not like they still can't bring this same team back together next year and maybe have better chemistry and contend, and that very well could happen, but now they are in a much more pressured situation than they had this year. See, the thing that people seem to forget is that the Clippers sold the house for this. Whatever Paul George said about them not seeing this as a championship or bust year, well, A, he said differently months ago, and B, they sold the whole house for him. Shea Gilgeous, a whole treasure trove of picks. I don't think the Clippers even have a first round draft pick until around 2027. They sold away middle schoolers. They sold away 6th graders for a chance to win their first title. It was supposed to happen this year regardless of what anyone says. And so the other thing is, Kawhi Leonard and PG both have the options to be free agents after the upcoming season. Yes, so whatever is going to happen in 2021, it goes back to what I was talking about in the doomsday scenario where if the NBA skipped a year or if there was going to be a lockout, they bet the whole house on this duo. One or both of them can decide they don't like the culture, they don't like the team, they don't like the direction it's headed in, and they can leave. No strings attached. It'll be like they were never even there. And so, again, losing this year would have been one thing. It's how they lost. That's got to be demoralizing, and that can compound on whatever failure they might have in the future, and they could lose it all. So if you're the Clippers who bet the entire house on a championship between this duo and you've never won anything, like you've never even been to a conference finals, next year you probably don't want to try to trade one of these guys to rebuild. I'm thinking they're more on the line of we have to win a championship. And so that might include something like getting a real point guard for the squad, not just a specialist. Lou Williams can score, but at what cost? Patrick Beverley can be an irritant, but at what cost? Do you look at like a Derrick Rose maybe? So if Kawhi and PG don't want to take over at the end of a playoff game they desperately need to win for some reason, they have a third guy that'll hunt his own buckets. Look, I have no clue what they do. I'm just spitballing. But they are in the hot seat. And hey, they lost to a good team, okay? I've said for months leading up to this that Denver was a dark horse, but that's exactly what I meant. A dark horse. I didn't think it was actually gonna happen. They're a team that, while they clearly have a chance for an extremely bright future, they're also here right now. Jokic and Murray are now. And being that they just became the first team in NBA history to come back from 3-1 in the same playoffs, is anything for them really impossible? Especially after doing it to the Clippers. Well, let's see. Against the Los Angeles Lakers, they played them 4 times this season. The only game they won was when LeBron James wasn't playing. However, 2 of those games they lost were very close. One was a 4-point loss in overtime, and one was a 3-point loss in the bubble, which also is a game where people sat at the end, so how much can you really tell from that? And you can only tell so much from the regular season anyways, as we see in this bubble playoffs. And despite it looking like with the Lakers being this close, they should just go ahead and be able to get it done, being this close to the NBA Finals, I have questions on each side. Jokic has eaten everything that's come his way, no pun intended. He is at least the best offensive center in the league right now. I just watched him completely take apart the Clippers with his passing, especially out of the pick and roll. And despite Jamal Murray not having the most amazing shooting series against the Clippers. He's literally always there in clutch moments, and the Clippers were the team I expected him to struggle the most against. But then on the flip side of that, the Lakers can also go at Jokic in the pick and roll because his defense is not amazing, and nobody really has a good matchup for LeBron James, but especially not the Nuggets. Difference is, I don't anticipate him getting passive in clutch moments or when it's time for the Lakers to close them out. But what are the Lakers going to do with Jokic taking some of their big men out to the perimeter? And how good is their defense going to be against the pick and roll? Because one thing that I thought just absolutely destroyed the Clippers was whenever they didn't want somebody picking on Lou Williams, they had to compensate so much for that it opened up a bunch of different options. It opened up cutters. It really loosened up the defense, and Jokic was able to, get a triple-double in that closeout game. Man, this one is tough because I definitely don't want to count out a team we just saw come back 3-1 twice. Also against a team that a lot of people, including myself, had been picking to win the championship this year. I am also not too keen on ever picking against a team that has 2 All-NBA players, the 2 best players left in the playoffs, and one that clearly has tricks up their sleeves. Look how they turned Rondo into an advantage last series, when in theory he should never really see the floor with LeBron James, but they make it work. Well, all in all, it's impossible for me to sit here and say that this series is not going to be competitive because, as we see, the Nuggets can be dead in the water and still make something of it. Maybe they prefer that. However, I do believe this is where their luck is going to run out. They've gone against some great competition, but they have not gone against LeBron James, or Anthony Davis for that matter. I think it's going to be Lakers in 7. I think the Nuggets have earned the benefit of the doubt. I have a lot of question marks for both sides, and I've had my eyes on Denver all year. I've said repeatedly, if the Lakers and Clippers didn't exist, they were third up. Well, they're here now. The Clippers don't exist anymore, and dark horse always meant that the team could make the finals, so Denver literally cannot surprise anyone anymore. They no longer have the element of surprise. But I think when it's all said and done, however it happens, we will be seeing LeBron James and AD in the finals. Would have been a lot more dramatic with the Clippers here, but at this rate, we may not ever get that series. And if we did next year, everybody's going to be another year older. Who knows if it's going to be the same? Clippers got to hold that L. Anyways, let me know where your predictions are down below. Do you believe in the Nuggets enough that you would pick them for their second straight upset? How many games do you think the series is going? And also, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a video drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.